Welcome back to another episode of these crazy people, or this one guy who just eats meat and can't stop talking about it. It's me, Tom, solo, live at 5. Sorry, guys, haven't been on the lives the last couple weeks. Did record with Joe and Justin 2 weeks ago, and it's not public yet, but it's uploaded. I just got to put some finer points on it. And then last week, Justin and I did one on that article about feeding burn victims eggs to help them regenerate. So, anyways, um, that kind of launched an idea between me and Justin to see what it's like to eat 35 raw eggs in a day. Of course, if you're a burn victim in the hospital on a feeding tube, it's probably pretty straightforward. I've been doing some experiments. I know I posted a couple pictures of raw eggs. I like them blended, I use one of those little electronic stirrers and stir it up a little bit. Makes it a little smoother. So, anyways, I'm going to see about, so far I've only done like 6 at a time. So I'm going to see if I can work it up and fit in some more. See what happens when you eat a bunch of eggs. So, anyways, hopefully we'll get the crowd going here soon. I know I texted Raymond Neff, let him know. I see. I think Sly replied in the Telegram group. Yeah, so people out there who don't know Meat Mosaic, we've got a. I say we, it's kind of me, but Justin's usually here and Joe gets here when he can. Of course, he's all the way in Australia, so the scheduling is tough. And then, occasionally we get Emily and Raymond Nazon back, Emily Penton. So the Me Mosaic, we like to have all kinds of guests on. Sly was on not that long ago. What do I consider? Sly's asking what I consider a bunch. I'm assuming she's talking about a bunch of eggs. So I was going to work my way up and see what it's like to eat 36 or 35. 35 eggs is what was in the burn victim study. So I was thinking, well, let's just round it off to 36, right? Because that's 6 dozen. So, anyways, yeah, I'm going to see what it's like to eat like 36 eggs in a day. I had 6 raw eggs for dinner last night, late dinner. I got to the gym late, got home, threw them down, and then did I have another? I think I had 6 more this morning. So, anyways, I'm gonna go up to 12. Yeah, 8 a day does seem like a lot of eggs, but of course, and that's Slice comment, by the way. Yeah, I think 8 for a lot of people is a lot, but there are people out there that eat a dozen or 2 a day. And in the bodybuilding world, of course, most people these days, they eat like lean meat and vegetables and rice and stuff like that. But the classic bodybuilding diet in the past was steak and eggs. So we'll see. I know it's not for everybody, but most I'm a big fan of raw steak. Lately, I've been eating a lot of raw top sirloin or sirloin tip steak. So, Marge is here. Marjorie, or as I usually call her, just Marge. Hey, Marge. So, anyways, yeah, I had raw sirloin for breakfast, and somewhere in there I had a glass of raw eggs, and then for lunch I had chili dogs. Of course, been on a chili kick. When Joe was here, it wasn't entirely clear to Joe exactly what chili was from an American's perspective. And he referred to it as a casserole a few times, and I had to correct him. I was like, man, you're in another country, and calling chili a casserole here could be dangerous to your health, because we tend to not put casseroles on the same level as chili. I understand as a foreigner, it may seem like an accurate sort of description of the food, but chili in the States is kind of a high art. And for the people outside the States, our chili is usually ground beef that's seasoned. It's usually spicy. It usually has what we call chili powder. And the foundation of chili powder is cayenne pepper, a red, spicy chili that's usually uh, bought in a dried powdered form. So a lot of people put garlic or onions or whatever in there as well. A bunch of other stuff. I'm not a big fan of garlic or onions, so you know I tend to avoid it. But most people probably at least put onions. And it's not uncommon to put like raw diced onions on top of chili. Usually have some cheese, like a grated cheddar, and often has sour cream. But of course, I tend to make a mild chili because my dog likes to eat chili, and I don't want to give my dog a bunch of chili powder or cayenne pepper. And then I just add some more heat to it when I'm going to eat it. So yeah, one of my favorite hot sauces is the Tabasco Chipotle sauce. It's a nice smoky fermented chili sauce. So, anyways, I got Joe and Justin hooked on that. First thing Joe did when he got back to Australia was go hunt down some Tabasco Chipotle. But I like the green jalapeno sauce they have too. Oftentimes eat both together at the same time. And I'm no snob. I like Frank's and Cholula and Tapatio and all those. Those are all real common hot sauces here. We all kind of grew up with them, and they don't seem to affect me negatively at all. On the other hand, black pepper does. So I avoid black pepper altogether. Um, I'm not exactly sure what that is. Maybe it's actually the pepperine in the black pepper that does it. Whereas the chilies, they tend to be hot because they have capsicum in them, the stuff they make pepper spray out of. So, or maybe it's because most of the other sauces are fermented. They're vinegar based sauces that are typically aged a little bit. I mean, that's kind of the secret to Michelini and all their Tabascos is they're aged. So, anyways, got to take a sip of water. I forget, doing these solos. Of course, I did a million solo videos before I met Joe and Justin and Raymond and Emily. And of course, I've had a bunch of guests. Having a guest on is always easy because the guests winds up doing most of the talking. I mean, because that's why they're there. Usually you want to hear their story or they've got something significant to share with everybody. So, anyways, doing it solo again. Today I was just going to come on and I was like, let's see what the crowd wants to talk about. And I'm just going to fill in with my backstory because I know we got like a newer crowd now since we started doing lives. I mean, obviously, I know I've been doing videos for a number of years now. I started out doing keto and fasting videos, and then by the time I started doing videos, everybody's like, yeah, you got to do some YouTube videos. By the time I figured that out, I was actually eating carnivore for quite a while before I changed the name or kind of changed the theme of the videos, and this channel has been rebranded a couple times just because my original YouTube account didn't make any sense, right? It was just some random uh, old email address I had. I remember when I was doing a video with Sean one time, and he's like, "Hey, what's up with that YouTube name?" And I'm like, "Well, that was just an old email address, that I use for my friends. It's just kind of a funny name." He was like, "Oh, okay." And I was like, "Yeah, I need to change that on." So anyways, yeah, you want to talk about chili for a minute? So basically, when Joe was here, we wanted to expose him to the chili because we thought he'd enjoy it. He's a chef, and we eat burgers and steaks and stuff all the time. But I thought chili had some untapped potential. So his favorite was the Hat, which I'd agree. Out of all the chain restaurants, and it's really a fast food place, but the food quality there is really high. The pastrami is fantastic. Their burgers are fantastic. And it's kind of a Southern California staple. It's not as widespread as like an In-N-Out or even a Tommy's, but their chili is amazing. So if you go in there and you just get chili and pastrami, you're in hog heaven. So then we started making chili, and one of the reasons why I make chili is because I have a lot of raw steak around, and I don't always eat it. So I take it with me typically to work. I'm usually eating lunch, sometimes breakfast, but oftentimes dinner before I ever get home. I'm eating raw steak, and I don't always finish it. As you guys probably heard me say a million times, for me, eating enough is a chore. The more active I am, the more of a chore, because it's nothing for me to need to eat, 5 or 6 thousand calories on an average day, especially nowadays. A lot of times I hit the gym twice just to break up my workouts. I get more out of it that way. So get a little recovery time and go back and hit it again, usually feeding in between. But when you're not eating a bunch of, carbs, I prioritize protein, because if I start eating fatty cuts of meat, um, you when I eat the fatty cuts of meat, my appetite shuts down before I get enough protein in. So I do better if I can eat more if I eat the leaner cuts of meat first. But it's a lot of meat. I mean, you guys can do the math, and 5,000-6,000 calories worth of lean steak is a lot of steak. So that's one reason I'm kind of looking forward to seeing how many raw eggs I can eat. But anyways, I frequently have leftover chili or leftover steak, and then some, not too infrequently, I'll have hamburger patties laying around, or ground beef or something that I was going to make hamburgers out of. And when it's been in the fridge a few days, I'm just like, yeah, you know what? Let's just make chili. So and Raymond brings up a good point. He's talking about the ingredients in the chili. It could have all kinds of stuff in it, like flour. A lot of times they put stuff in the chili to thicken it up, because I prefer thicker chili. And that can be challenging when you're just basically using meat and some seasoning. So they'll put flour or starches and oils and stuff in it. So yeah, you're right. It's best to make your own, and it's easy to make. I mean, I make it in a crock pot. It's just sort of an automated, self-regulating device. I think some people call them slow cookers, but it's basically a giant ceramic pot inside of a heating element, and you can usually set it on high or low or something like that. I know the one I have used to have a temperature probe, and I don't know what became of it. So one of these days I'll find it. I know it's in a drawer somewhere, and that would probably help. But you can just throw the meat in there, set the timer, put some seasoning. I tend to put a little bit of tomato sauce or tomato paste in there. I like that, and the tomato paste doesn't bother me. So I will add, chili powder, sometimes celery salt, paprika, paprika. I used to be married to a Hungarian, so I got to say it right. She'll come out of the shadows and smack me. But anyways, I also put like ground yellow mustard seed in there. That's what I like to do, and I like the mixture of the ground beef and the chunks of steak. That's kind of my favorite. Oh, and sometimes I put cream cheese in it. The cream cheese gives it that thicker, fattier consistency too. So if you don't have enough fat, you got a bunch of lean meat laying around, you can add that in there. I will caution you, if it gets too hot, then the cream cheese kind of turns into tiny little spheres. It's almost like maybe it's cooking too much or whatever. It turns into little cheese balls, and you don't get that nice smooth sort of creaminess to it. So I had a chili disaster. I'm not sure what was going on. I think what happened was I was trying to reduce the tomato sauce down at Joe's suggestion. So I threw it in the crock pot, turned it on, got it hot. I was cutting up the meat, and I thought, well, I'll season the meat before I put it in, because I'm trying to wait for that tomato sauce to cook down. But I think what happened was I got salt on the meat, and then when I put it in the crock pot with the tomato sauce, it clumped together, and all the moisture came out of the meat. And then I had like this giant clump of meat in the middle of the crock pot and a bunch of soup around it. So yeah, normally I season the liquid, um, or as it's cooking. And this time I think I got too much salt directly on the meat or something like that, and it might have got too hot because it actually expanded and overspilled the whole crock pot. It went in between the ceramic bowl and the heating element. It went all over the counter. It was a giant mess. So yeah, maybe I'll just cook that on low from now on and not pre-season the meat. So anyways, but chili, it's easy, it's cheap. You can make it out of cheap cuts of meat. It doesn't matter. It could be the toughest meat at the butcher shop, and you slow cook it into a chili, and it's going to be tender and easy to eat. So, and if you're like me, your dog will love it too. So it makes things easy. I cook a lot of chicken thighs for my dog, but she loves it if I add some chili to the chicken thighs and stir it in. And like I said, I don't make it real spicy. So I always like to add the heat at the end, because especially when you're not eating alone or you're feeding a pet, you don't, everybody's tastes a little different. And not everybody grew up in the Southwest where everything had to be slamming hot all the time. So anyways, chili is easy. And even for somebody like me that likes to eat a lot of raw steak, I never get tired of chili. In fact, I think I already said this, but I had 4 chili dogs for lunch. So there you go. A little bit of, what do you call it? Processed meat with some homemade chili on it, a little Swiss cheese. It was pretty awesome. So, um, I know there's like a million chili recipes out there, and I'll be honest, I probably don't make it exactly the same way twice. And I'm sure a lot of people do that. I do put the diced green chilies in it, like those mild Ortega chilies. I like that flavor too. So, anyways, I'm sure everybody has their own recipes, and there's a million different kinds of chili out there. And I put pork or pork sausage in it too. I put wild boar in it. Whatever's around. It doesn't really matter, and I don't have any qualms about mixing meat. I mean, it could put chicken, duck, turkey, beef, pork, and armadillo in there for all I care. So, anyways, chili is chili, and chili is delicious, and everybody should eat it. I'm sure everyone agrees. So, anyways, for all the people who are kind of newish, I know the carnivore sphere, keto sphere is growing, and there's lots and lots of people, and there's lots and lots of videos and all that. I started eating carnivore like a little over 5 years ago, probably. I came from keto, like a lot of people, and I started making videos. I don't know, 3 or 4 years ago, something like that. It's hard to remember, but you can see on the channel they go back a ways, and I started some Facebook groups. So Marge, let's do some oxtail soup. All right, I'm down. Oxtail soup sounds good to me. I'm not really sure what even goes in oxtail soup. I've only had it once or twice, and it's been a long time. So, but hey, we're eating nose to tail. So oxtail soup this week and ox nose soup next week. So nothing but snouts next week. So, anyways, for people who don't know, there is a Meat Mosaic Facebook group. I hope everybody joins. There's also a Meat Mosaic Telegram group where people can message each other. They're both relatively small groups. Everybody's very friendly there. And then I also have a group called Autistic Carnivores. So, hey, there's Christina came rolling in. Good to see you, Christina. Maybe Christina has a recipe for oxtail soup. I'm sure Marge does. Marge probably knows it off the back of her hand. But so anyways, I've had various other Facebook groups that are still around. There's one called the Meat Cult. We decided that, if for some reason people want to clamp down on other people eating meat, we should have a religious center for our meat eating religious exemption. So please join the meat cult if you so like. It's not a real active a group, and people talk about some of the more obscure stuff in there, political stuff sometimes, whatever. But it's a pretty quiet group too. And I have another group called Keto and Carnivory. It's a pretty quiet group. Autistic Carnivores is the one I focus on, that and Meat Mosaic. Just, I mean, from the beginning, I really wanted to build a community because I heard from a lot of people like that, they wanted to change the way they're eating, whether it was keto or just low carb or especially carnivore. They felt very isolated because they didn't personally know anybody else. And that was true for me too. When I started, I was the only one in my house that was interested in changing their diet, really, period. And so there's not a lot of camaraderie when your family or whatever, the people around you, and nobody at work was going to do this. And my old boss, she went low carb, she went keto at some point after I did, which is kind of cool. But you know how it is for a lot of people in the beginning. Um, they they give it a try and they do good for a few weeks and then they fall off the wagon, or maybe 2 weeks is probably typical. And then they eventually get back on it. Meantime, like for me, I think because the way I started was I didn't start by going, oh, I want to be keto. I just started reading about the effect of carbohydrates, right? So I was reading books. The first one I think was Why We Get Fat by Gary Taubes, but maybe it wasn't. I read a lot of the Gary Taubes books in the beginning, and then started, reading Maria Emmerich and other people. And so I was more looking at like, oh, okay, so start cutting out sugar, start cutting out flour, start cutting out vegetable oils. Okay. And so for me, that was just sort of easing into it. And there wasn't like, I didn't have like a firm identity of what I was doing. Right. And it was kind of vaguely low carb, figuring it out. And so there wasn't really any pressure, and there wasn't really anybody around. I was really just reading what other people were doing, or whatever. Um, I can imagine it's more difficult for somebody who just goes, "Hey, I want to do carnivore," and nobody around me is doing it. I just want to eat meat. By the time I went carnivore, I didn't really care what anybody else thought, and I get it that way. I hear people all the time like talking about the social pressure and whatever. And for whatever reason, like, I'll go out to work with coworkers or somebody's bringing lunch back, and I'm just like, yeah, I just eat meat. And then, people ask a few questions, but I don't know if I'm just not that kind of person that's easy to pressure or what, but I I don't have a hard time imagining the pressure that other people are feeling, but I just don't feel it. I mean, I did have some birthday cake with my friend who just had a birthday, my buddy Joel. So, but I could have easily said no, but I was like, you know what? Uh, I'm not even like a big fan of cake. So, cake's not like one of my things, and I'm not one of those people that's going to fall down the carb hole. So, I didn't really care. I thought, yeah, maybe my stomach will be a little off, or whatever, but I knew I was going to be up and around. We were pretty active, so I knew I was going to be up and around doing stuff. And if the little extra sugar will burn off, I did it too. I tried this ice cream when Joe and Justin were here, and it was really sweet, and I couldn't finish it. And I did get kind of queasy, like, oh my god, I had way too much sugar. But we were walking around too, we were on our feet for hours at a time. So I burned it off and it was gone, and no big deal for me. And I realize that's not the case for most people. Some people have more serious reactions. For me, I mean, I went down this line because I had really bad arthritis, and I had an anxiety disorder too. Well, I still do, but the arthritis went away, and if I just eat something like that one time, it doesn't come back. I don't feel any aches or pains, but that's not the case for other people. So, anyways, Other people too, they have that strong carb addiction. Maybe they're newer to it or whatever. So they obviously have to be more careful. And of course, there's all kinds of food allergies or um, stuff like that people can get triggered by. But Justin mentioned this. We were talking about this the other night on the phone because a lot of people have this impression that once you go carnivore, like you're a glass cannon. It's like you eat the wrong thing and all of a sudden you're terminally ill or something like that. And I was like, yeah, but I think one, the longer you're on carnivore, the less um, stuff like that probably affects you. And the other thing is too, like the classic scenario is somebody goes, "Oh, it was my birthday." And you know what? I was drinking beer, I was eating pizza, I had cake and ice cream, and we were eating chips and peanuts and there's all kinds of goodies around, and man, it felt like hell for a week. And it's like, well, that's a lot. That's not trying one thing. you know, that's all day of eating and drinking stuff that could potentially make you sick. So I think that's a big difference. And then even Justin, it seemed like he had two things in one day, and he was shocked that he didn't get a migraine. And I was like, well, yeah, but you tried two things that are off menu in one day. And he's like, yeah, but I mean, it seemed like a lot. And I was like, well, I mean, one, I don't think the dose, we always say the dose makes the poison. The dose wasn't that high. And number two, you've been carnivore for a long time now, years. So, I don't think everybody needs to walk around looking like they're feeling like they're super fragile forever. If anything, I think what the lesson is here is that the longer people are carnivore or keto, it seems like the more robust they are. You know, and so if they try something off menu once in a while, it's generally not catastrophic. And I love a good experiment. I'm always curious. You know, and like I said, black pepper bothers me, but I don't really have a reason to want to try it. So um I don't. So, anyways, yeah, I kind of don't like when these conversational trends come up and everybody's like, "Oh my god, once you go carnivore, you can never go back or you'll be sick." And it's like, I mean, if we look at the science, there's indications that when you eat a reduced carbohydrate diet for a long period of time, the cells in your body wind up with fewer insulin receptors on them, right? So maybe that makes you a little more susceptible to high blood sugar or whatever. But I mean, really, if you eat too much sugar on a rare occasion, I mean, in all honesty, you can walk it off. I mean, it's literally that easy. So at least for most of us, I don't feel like I'm I'm more susceptible or less robust than before. It's completely the opposite. And if I eat something that doesn't agree with me, I know it's going to come and go, and it's not going to be a big deal. So yeah, well, Christina, I mean, give it time, and maybe, I mean, like I said, Christina's saying she still has severe reactions. But to keep in mind, Justin was still getting migraines triggered up until a short time ago. So, aside from having fewer insulin receptors, which arguably makes it harder for your body to bring down your blood sugar, there's other things that go on too. All the different cells in the body live for different periods of time, right? I think the typical examples are something like some of the cells in your digestive tract may only live for a day, where some of the cells in your bones might live for years. Now, if you built all those cells that last for, days, weeks, months, years, over decades eating the wrong diet, it could take a while for those cells to be replaced with cells that are better designed to eat an optimal diet. And on top of that, we got to look at most reactions kind of come from your immune system. So, if you got hay fever or something, from pollen or whatever, that's your immune system reacting to the pollen. And your immune system, like in my case, my immune system gets triggered very easily by a simple, tiny skin infection, fungal infection. And that sends out a bunch of antibodies that then attack the skin cells, and then boom, got psoriasis. You got lesions all over the place. But as time goes on, that goes away. That gets better. Your immune system calms down and doesn't react is strongly or catastrophically to the antagonist. So, keep in mind, you stick with it. Those things will generally happen less, or at least to a lesser degree. I mean, nobody's really able to run around screaming that carnivore or keto is the absolute cure for everything. But as we notice, what happens is our symptoms get to be less and less, and our quality of life goes up and up. And at least we found something, right? Because most of the people that got here, it seems like because they were struggling with something and nothing else worked, So having to work around some trigger foods, isn't the end of the world, and that's why I wanted to build this community. So we could share this information. And there are people still that, they react to just histamines, like they've got to eat fresh meat, and they've got to avoid all kinds of other foods and stuff like that. But it seems like over time, the reactions to those things do decline, and it could take years. Because, like I said, it's everything from your immune system resetting itself and not being so reactionary to the cells in your body. More optimal cells for the diet you're on are produced. We could file that under epigenetics, right? Because epigenetics is really our genetics responding to our environment, and this is a thing that is the short term sort of reaction um, to how our bodies basically produce or stop producing or mitigate the production of proteins, which is what genes do, right? See, Christina has another statement here. I have been busy lately. I just started working with someone in Tennessee with my histamine reaction and anaphylaxis. I have worked my way up to a slice of lemon and a slice of orange so far. Oh, well, that's interesting. I didn't know this. Are lemons and oranges associated with histamines, or was that just another reaction? And of course, anaphylaxis is a very, very serious, immune system reaction. Anaphylaxis, that could, your throat can close up and you can get swelling and redness. And, obviously you don't want to stop breathing. So it's certainly something um, to be very concerned about. So far, all I can have is fruit. I know sugar is bad, but it's all I can have. Oh, so you can't, I mean, you have to fill me in here because obviously I missed something here. So you're working with a very limited diet. Obviously, you're gonna have to eat more than one piece of lemon and one piece of orange. So you must be eating a little something else, right? So we'll wait for Christina to comment and then we'll see. But you know, y'all can pull my carnivore card down. Oh yeah, we make that joke all the time. Yeah, I won't name names, but a certain somebody that I was hanging out with not that long ago, who was from another place, may have had a deep desire to try a true donut and ate the donut. So yeah, we didn't pull a carnivore card on that person because what's one donut in an ocean of steak? That's what I say. And I mean, I wouldn't do this if it wasn't for quality of life. Um, that some people are gonna. I mean, let's face it. We know lots of people, including carnivores, that smoke weed all day or every day at least. There's always a wake and bake around somewhere. And I mean, for them, it's a quality of life issue. So obviously, some people have a drink, they drink alcohol or whatever. Um, some people there's some little something they don't want to give up. Of course, there's always tobacco or whatever. So, Christina's having anaphylaxis to all plants. So perhaps some sort of very common plant compound. Might I'm going to immediately run to phytic acid, but hey, maybe one of these days we should start printing up some carnivore cards. That'd be kind of funny if people had carnivore cards. Then someday we'll have the board game. So, carnivore card, the board game. Did you survive your son's 10th birthday without eating cake and ice cream? Did you make it through Easter without eating a chocolate bunny? But to reference, I was severely broken going into carnivore. Well, that would be the case for a number of us. Yeah, I had crippling arthritis. I know I was telling somebody not that long ago. I've told the story a million times, but I got out of bed one morning and I couldn't close my hand enough to turn the doorknob. I was literally stuck in my bedroom until I figured out how to turn that doorknob with both hands. And I was faced that moment. I'm like, holy crap, how am I going to make a living? How is that going to work? Make a living without my hands? But fortunately, and of course, you go to the doctor and they just give you drugs. And for anybody who's had like really bad sciatica, I would walk around dragging usually my left foot behind me for sometimes a month at a time. And so it was rough for me too. Uh, I just, and the contrast is that was um something like the last time I had bad arthritis was probably like 6 years ago, something like that, 7 years ago or whatever. And it's gradually like I have no arthritis right now. And I have two damaged discs in my back. Tore this shoulder. In fact, if you notice, like when I'm flexing, like my shoulders aren't even symmetrical because I tore this one so bad. I got I don't know if you guys are gonna see it, but this hand is rebuilt. Yeah, I had a GSW. That hand broke all the bones crosswise in this hand. Um, I what else? Um, that caused chronic pain. That happened. My hand injury was maybe 20 years ago, but you break all the bones in your hand, and then they took nerves out of my right leg to rebuild my left hand. And of course, where all the bones fuse back together, they're all irregularly shaped and there's scar tissue in there and stuff. So, it's your hand. Hands are sensitive. I used to have severe foot pain all the time. Of course, changing my diet and then not wearing shoes made all the difference in the world. I was just having a conversation. I was at a store the other day, and the poor lady helping me out behind the counter, she was shuffling from side to side and she's going, oh man, my feet really hurt. And I told her, I had foot problems my whole life. Since I was a little kid, they put me in the corrective shoes and stuff like that. And all they did was screw up my feet more. And I didn't figure it out till I was an adult. And actually, it was a doctor I had like, this is kind of how the whole psoriasis thing started. The shoes would squish my toes together so bad, and then the skin between the toes would just get destroyed. And the doctor's like, "Well, you gotta get a shoe with a bigger toe box, and then my feet are really thick, which is probably because of the corrective shoes they put me in when I was a kid. They basically tried to artificially give me an arch, and I think the reason why I had flat feet was because they kept putting me in shoes. I think if they had left me alone and let me walk around barefoot, I would have had normal feet. So, anyways, my feet are really thick and wide, and I need a gigantic toe box, and socks don't fit, and shoes don't fit. And I literally walk into shoe stores and like the salesman's like, "You again?" I told you I don't have anything that fits you. You know, I mean, it's that bad. But I wear the five fingers. If people don't know what those are the made by Vibram. You can look up five finger Vibram five fingers on the interwebs, and you can see them all day long. And then I wear moccasins because shoes don't fit, socks don't fit. People think I'm kidding, but you can ask anybody who's lived with me for any length of time how many shoes and socks I've tried, how much money has went out the window, and it just was miserable. So I get it. Um, and I'll make the point too that a lot of these problems, carnivore fixed the pain, but there's no fixing the feet and the skin issues without wearing shoes as little as possible, right? Which might cause a problem or two at work, but especially since I'm supposed to be wearing steel toes most of the time. I mean, I'm not going to wear them in the office, but I got a big warehouse, and I mean, I have one pair of steel toe boots that are size 16, and my feet do fit in them. But like, I had to have zippers put into the sides of the boots just so I could get my feet in the boots. That's how big my feet are. I'll show the boots sometimes. And then I've got another pair that are 15 extra wides, and I can only wear them for like an hour or two. Well, if I'm walking around, it's not bad, but if I'm sitting still or something, I can't keep the shoes on. So, as much as carnivore took away all the pain and stuff like that, there's still challenges. We still got to work things out, right? So, anyways, enough about me complaining about my feet, because my feet are fine if I don't wear shoes. And that's a weird thing. Here's the thing. So there's plenty of girls out there in the crowd. What is it with girls looking at feet all the time? I, I, if I get one compliment more than anything else, it's girls telling me I have nice feet. I always thought that was strange, but maybe not. You guys can tell me. So, anyways, um, I think what else should we cover today? I mean, I could go on and on about myself, obviously, but I've obviously talked about myself plenty of times in the past. So, let's see. We're already coming up on. I know there's a clock in front of me somewhere. Where's the timer? Holy crap! It's not on the screen. So, anyways, let's see. We talked about chili. We talked about eating raw. Talked about raw eggs. Talked about raw steak. Talked about my giant feet. And Justin's not here. Oh yeah, I promised to humiliate Justin a little bit. Justin's love interest just drove cross state to spend some time with him. So he's got the evening off for bad behavior. He'll be back next week, I'm sure. Joe, this is a bad time slot for Joe. So Raymond Neff is asking me if I eat turkey for Thanksgiving. Yeah, I mean, I usually wind up going to a forced family function and turkey is served. And, traditional Thanksgiving turkey is dry. So I usually put some butter on it and eat it down. Um, it's funny because one of the young guys at work, and he was like, he walked in my office one day and saw me eating raw steak, and he was like, "Is that raw steak?" And I'm like, "Yeah, it's raw steak." It's like people have been eating it for thousands of years, maybe a million. He's like, "Oh, okay." And then a few days later, it was Thanksgiving. He's like, "Hey, um, do you eat raw turkey?" And I was like, "No, I don't eat raw turkey. I do eat some cooked meat. Um, I'm not really one to go to the trouble of roasting a turkey myself. Unfortunately, I wound up, going to someone else's house where someone else makes the turkey. So, but I'm not against eating like lunch meat or something. I'll eat some turkey with lunch meat. Lunch meats and stuff like that don't really bother me, but they make up a tiny fraction of my diet, So I can't imagine eating, 4 pounds of sliced deli meat a day or something like that because most of that stuff's too salty for me, anyways. I mean, enjoy a hot dog or something, here and there, but and there's these meat sticks. I forgot what it's called, like Green Valley or something like that. They're really good, but one of those and I'm done. There's just too salty, whatever. So, but and I know a lot of people, the lunch meats, the processed meats, don't agree with them, and they could have sugar or oils added to them or high fructose corn syrup and stuff like that. So definitely something to avoid if those things trigger you. But like I said, they're such a small, tiny, tiny fragment of my diet that if I eat some of that, and that'll be a go-to thing for me. Like I'm out, I complain all the time. I work, I commute to work, and I spend a lot of time sitting in traffic. I don't always have enough food with me, so if I run into a supermarket or something and get turkey or bologna or uh, something like that. I mean, you can always, if you need cheese, you're gonna get some cheese. But even me, I mean, how much cheese am I gonna eat? I mean, I showed a picture of my shopping cart last night. I had like more than 20 pounds of meat and 1 pound of Havarti cheese in there. That was the one thing that somebody commented on was the Havarti. Of course, it was another Havarti lover. So Havarti is a nice, soft white cheese. It tastes really, really good. So, but I mean, you think about it. There's 1 pound of cheese. It'll it'll probably be around for 2 or 3 weeks. Um, Whereas I bought, 5 trays of steak at roughly 3.5 pounds per tray, plus another 6 pounds of ground beef and another 4 pounds of shrimp. So you do the math, that's a lot of meat. That's, I don't know, 20 some pounds of meat. And yeah, I consider shrimp to be meat. So I don't distinguish, any of the animals are fine. They're all meat to me. The ones out of the ocean, the ones out of the sky, the ones that walk across the land, they're all meat to me. So, some people consider meat just red meat. I'm like, does that mean beef and pork or no pork? What about chicken? And yeah, I'll eat chicken sometimes. I mean, but for me, I can sit down, I'll eat the whole rotisserie chicken in one sitting. Um, Ideally, but I don't eat a lot of chicken. But stuff like that's good. And of course, those chickens are probably like low grade, industrial farm chickens. They've probably been injected with at least water and salt water. Who knows, MSG or whatever. So they don't make up a big part of my diet either. But it doesn't bother me to eat them once in a while. So I got to be in the mood, you know. I'd much rather be eating steak and shrimp. I mean, come on, isn't that kind of the pinnacle of eating steak and shrimp? And I like scrambled eggs, but I don't have a lot of time to cook, so that was why eating the raw eggs is kind of a nice alternative. And that's even expensive, pasture raised, organic, free range chickens are the eggs aren't really that expensive, when you compare it to what we spend on other food. So um yeah, some people go back to the cheese, and I like to say dairy's complicated. I hate to see people just say dairy's good or dairy's bad or whatever, because there's a big difference between one type of dairy and another. Every type of cheese is different, because what happens to the dairy when the cultures are acting on it, yields different results. There's a big difference between drinking raw milk and drinking 2% homogenized milk. It's a big difference between a natural milk from a cow that's just been walking on the pasture, and one that's raised in an industrial farm setting. So in general, I look at milk as being obesogenic. Some people want to put on weight. Some people need to do that. And certainly I know it was California, man. This is hippie central. So there's plenty of people that eat raw dairy around here. It's one I know in a lot of states it's not even legal to buy raw milk. Here you can walk into not necessarily every grocery store has raw milk, but it's not that hard to find, and you can walk in and buy it. So, um, and of course, the people like the Amish people, they they always drink raw milk, and most of those people are some fit and hearty folk. So, I'm not really a milk drinker. I knew a long time ago that milk made my allergies worse, so I stopped drinking it, and I never really missed it. So, but I will have some cream sometimes. I will eat cheese sometimes. I'll eat cottage cheese too. I know some people are probably shrieking in horror because there's carbs in them that the cottage cheese, even if it's made from whole milk. But again, it doesn't make up a huge part of my diet. Oh, ADS is in the house. Good to see you, man. So, I don't know. Everybody has to decide what sort of a moderation they need for those things. And there's this whole thing about dopaminergic compounds. So those are things that make you feel good, or have a dopamine type reaction. And cheese can have things called casomorphines in them, which of course, it's like something in the cheese that acts like morphine. And so for some people, they get addicted to cheese, and that's not good. I mean, I don't think most people can eat that much cheese without getting a digestive problem, if you know what I mean. So I kind of look at cheese more as a seasoning or a little snack. I'll eat this string cheese, like or the Havarti at work with my work buddy Marissa. She's kind of exploring low carb and keto. It's just kind of getting into it. Um, and we work together a lot. So we have a mini fridge at work we share, so it's convenient. So she, um, you know, that's a convenient thing because you can throw cheese in the fridge and don't have to worry. Oh, cheese curds. Yeah, if you can get them, they're finally get some quality cheese curds here in on the West Coast, but most people here don't know what they are. So, but you can get them. Sometimes Aldi's has them, and sometimes the Sprouts near me in Eastville has them. So, but again, they don't make up a significant portion of my diet. If you can think about eating a handful of cheese curds and then eating 4 pounds of top sirloin, you know. So again, maybe it's the dose that makes the poison, and maybe there's just those foods that trigger. That could be an interesting question for Christina. Maybe she knows is cheese is high in histamines. I mean, since it is, pretty much an aged food, I would imagine that there could be a lot of histamines in there. So that may not agree with most people, but back to Thanksgiving turkey. I wouldn't probably hesitate to put turkey in a chili. But of course, the chili is kind of like you're making like a meat soup that's where you're retaining the fat. So, yeah. So Christina's saying, yeah, um, cheese is cheese does have histamines, and no, she can't eat it. Well, I'm sorry to hear that. I hope it all gets better. So, as far as Christina's issue with histamines and stuff like that and reacting, arthritis is typically an autoimmune disease as well. So it's the immune system reacting, just like with other allergies or just like with psoriasis. It is your immune system typically kicking out antibodies because it thinks it's being attacked, and those antibodies, instead of just killing um, infections, they're also attacking other cells in the body. So in the case of arthritis, is typically antibodies attacking the joints. Of course, there could be inflammation in the joints, which makes it worse. And of course, we know when you're on a high carbohydrate diet, the synoviocytes in the joints secrete less synovium, which is the fluid that lubricates the joints. So when you go low carb, synovial sites secrete more lubricant, and on top of reducing the inflammation, that diet can often cause the joints are under lubricated. So even people who have very little no cartilage left in a joint, sometimes just changing their diet and getting the inflammation down and the lubrication up is enough to alleviate their pain. So in my case, I would assume that my arthritis was psoriatic arthritis, but it could have been RA or rheumatoid arthritis as well. And they never really did any definitive tests, but I think just because I had psoriasis, it was assumed that they're the same origin. So, but now I know it wasn't just the diet that was causing inflammation. It wasn't just the reduced lubrication of the joints, but it was actually an immune system reaction to the fungal infection, which basically started on the skin in my feet from wearing shoes that were too tight, right? And that's the thing. You go to the foot doctor, or the regular doctor, like, oh, you got to wear shoes with good support, and you got to lace them up tight, and you got to have a heel. And it's like, yeah, you know what? I walk around with shoes with a heel on, and it just makes my back hurt. And I walk around flat footed. I can walk around all over the place. I go to the gym. I wear those 5-finger shoes. There's basically just a rubber membrane on the bottom of the shoe. There's no real arch support. There's no real confinement. It is sort of an elastic sort of construction, but it's actually very soft. I know I won't name names, but there is a guy. He's a carnivore. He's a good guy, but he was trying to make the case that the 5-finger would just destroy people's feet. He knew people that had been crippled by him, and he likened them to putting your hand in a glove, and how your gloves will make your hands weak. But at the same time, he supported wearing regular shoes. And to me, lacing your foot up into a shoe is like strapping on a splint, which is worse than wearing a glove, right? And of course, the dose makes the poison. So just how tight, how restrictive are those shoes or gloves or whatever we're talking about is really what it comes down to. Yeah, ADS mentions that Michaela Peterson can't eat cheese due to the histamine. And there you go. I mean, histamine is essentially one of those things that our bodies produce, but also is in food that triggers the immune system, right? So here we have a situation, if I'm not mistaken, Michaela Peterson was considered to have a rheumatoid arthritis, which again, it's an autoimmune disease. Hers obviously aggravated, if not caused by histamine. There's probably more to it than just histamine, and she was having joint replacements as a very young person. And of course, I know this. She was having cortisone injections in those joints to alleviate pain, which is one of the common treatments for it. And it does tend to alleviate pain, but the injection of the cortisone hastens the deterioration of the joint. So after years of um, cortisone injections, cortisone, of course, is a cortical steroid, right? The joint will more than likely fail after a certain number of injections, right? I mean, it's maybe hard to say whether it would have, if it really made it fail any faster. I mean, that's always going to depend on the circumstances, but that's one of the reasons why they hesitate to do the injections. I know I was complaining about foot pain and went to the foot doctor, and she's like, I basically had pinched nerve between my toes, and she told me, oh man, no walking barefoot, wear shoes with lots of support, which of course is the exact opposite of what I needed. What I needed was space for my feet. And yeah, I would go in there and she would, this is, I've already shared this, I've had, serious car accident, several GSWs and whatever. It's still one of the creepiest things is watching the doctor stick a needle between your toes. It's like, yeah, there's just something super creepy. Doesn't matter how nice the doctor is about it. She's got that little syringe and she's jamming it between your toes to to put some of that cortisone in the joint, because your toes kind of are, your toes go back into your feet, right? We've all seen X-rays, and somewhere in those joints in between there, is what she said was probably the second most common complaint that she gets as a podiatrist. And I heard the treatment is to shoot some steroids in there to reduce the inflammation, and then make sure you wear shoes with good support and don't go barefoot. So all I know is that I tried the 5 fingers. I walked around in for a long time, and yeah, you notice that your feet just keep getting stronger. They're probably, if you've been wearing shoes your whole life, they're probably not strong enough in the beginning. But now I have like crazy strong feet, and I like bragging about my 10,000 calorie day. Whereas my friend decided he wanted to drive in a demolition derby and asked me to help out on the pit crew. And so the whole day before, all I did was pack tools, and I mean a lot of tools, power tools, sockets, impact drills, saws, torches, hammers. And everybody out there who doesn't know, I love hammers. So I mean hammers up to 20 pounds. Got to take them with. Pry bars. I've got a toque that's 26 pounds, 26-pound pry bar. It's actually like an icebreaker sort of thing. So it was spend a whole day packing that. Next morning, get up, load all those tools into a truck, drive to the fairgrounds, unload all those tools, start unpacking all those tools, help other people unload their tools, and then start prepping the car, make sure everything's right, fuel it up, check things, blah, 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 blah. Then run out to the stands to watch your friend drive backwards over another car and flip on its side 10 seconds into the first heat. And then fortunately, I was able to continue and win the heat. And then the cars come back to the pits. And I mean, these cars are in bad enough shape that a lot of them are just drugged with bulldozers, giant like D10s, just dragging cars with smoke and steam and melting batteries and, fuel everywhere, power steering fluid everywhere. And then you do whatever you can to fix the car. You get to weld some reinforcement plates in, but you got at the very least, you're taking the front tire, jacking it up, taking the front tires out, maybe straightening out tie rod, and then everybody's just trying to help everybody. And there's nothing but hammers and acetylene torches everywhere. It's just mayhem, saws, grinders, blah, 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 running around getting tools. So I spent the whole day running around with steel toe boots on in the sun, and my feet didn't bother me one time. My back didn't bother me. My torn shoulder didn't bother me. My hand didn't bother me. And I didn't finish that day till probably 2:00 in the morning. So by midnight, I'd surpassed 10,000 calories. And I'm 51 years old, and I used to be crippled by arthritis, So anyways, the joints can feel a lot better. I mean, if you've lost enough cartilage in the joint, it's probably not the cartilage won't grow back, but that doesn't mean you have to live in pain, So anyways, sometimes you gotta look at the medical advice that's failing you and then find another way. And it might be wearing shoes as little as possible, or it might be just changing your diet, but it's probably some of both, right? And that's really what it comes down to. Is the people that typically get somewhere are the ones that are relentlessly keep trying things and keep learning and keep exploring till they find the solutions that are not handed to them. So, and that sounds like what Christina's doing. She's doing her best to work her way through these histamine reactions that she's having, So, and hopefully, I think, she'll find a way to get her immune system to act more normal. And I think she'll get back a better quality of life. So I wish I knew more how to help her, but maybe somebody else out there does. I mean, that's the important part about building a community like this is you never know when somebody else stumbled onto the thing you need, And a lot of times people that suffer for a long period of time with some sort of disease or disorder know more about it than the people that are treating them, because they've had a lifetime to learn, and especially if they're dealing with a standard practitioner or a doctor who's not a specialist. The doctors will tell you that a lot of times these patients come in with a wealth of knowledge about their own condition that they do not learn in medical school, because nobody can be an expert in everything. And as we know, most doctors are not experts in nutrition. So anyways, thanks everybody. I mean, does anybody else have any other comments or anything that they wanted to contribute? I appreciate everybody being here. Sorry, missed the last couple of weeks. There'll be a couple of videos coming out. Like I said, Justin and I looked at that article on feeding raw eggs to burn victims, and then Joe and Justin and I Joe and I did a wrap up video before he went back to Australia. I'm working on doing a video of Michael Griffith coming up. He's a member of Autistic Carnivores, and I believe he's a bodybuilder in the UK. And then also, hopefully, I'm going to do some videos with Chef Doug Farnsworth, who works for, I believe it's called the Kings Group or something like that. They own a bunch of restaurants here in California. And he gave Joe and Justin and I a VIP treatment down at Meat on Ocean in Santa Monica. We got to go in the aging room, see all the beef, and learn all about how they age the meat and everything. So I'm talking to Chef Farnsworth about hopefully we'll get Joe on too, maybe Justin, and we could talk some more about meat so you guys can hear it from an expert, because what they do with the meat down there is amazing. And he offered to help me set up my own aging fridge, which I'm working on. It's going to help me inoculate that with the proper strains. So I look forward to that. I'm looking forward to more experiments. Looking forward to chugging some raw eggs, eating some steak, making some chili. So anyways, maybe you guys want to submit some of your chili recipes. And I hope everybody out there is working on building a community. So everybody has somebody to talk to. Everybody has an experience to share. And so anyways, I look forward to seeing you guys on the Facebook groups or in the Telegram group. And make sure and share this video. Sorry for the shimmery quality. I gotta regreen my green screens, it looks like, because they work perfect in Zoom, but they don't work as good in StreamYard. But StreamYard's one of the easiest tools for doing the live stream on YouTube. So anyways, sorry about that, but hopefully you share this video, give us the thumbs up, hit that like button, stay subscribed and all that. Help us grow the channel, help us get the word out, and most of all, help us help other people. So until next time, hope everybody out there eats some meat and feel better. And whatever you do, don't fall down that carb hole.